Welcome. Here we are again. Marriage and mental illness. I don't know what part we're up to. What part are we up to?
I don't know. This is like the 8th one, I think.
Okay.
So
Look at us killing it.
Yep.
We're actually going to be going off what Mark talked about previously on Monday. Was it Monday?
Yes, Monday. 4 strategies that a person with a mental illness can use to make their marriage better, or even save their marriage in some cases. And I'm very interested to see what a person in a caring capacity feels about these points. So, essentially, it all comes down to communication.
Absolutely.
And I say that on the podcast, that
Yep.
it's communication. You can't communicate enough.
I agree. But I think there was 4 points. Is that right?
Within that. I just point that out because people that are wondering, some of them sound very similar, and they do, but they're very different in my mind. And hopefully we're going to express that today. So there is 4 different things. You can check out the podcast from Monday. It's on your YouTubes, your Facebooks, it's all over the shop. So the first one is be accountable. So when I say that to you, what do you think that means from my perspective?
That tells me that you want to be accountable for your behaviors, your actions, how you're interacting. Is that on the mark?
Yep. It ties in very much with the third point, but being accountable is allowing the other person or giving the other person permission to help you be accountable. So when you talk about accountability, it's a contract between 2 people. I will allow you to hold me to the commitment that I've made. That's accountability.
Yes.
In a marriage, in our case, for me, it was an unspoken contract that I was going to do better. But what I did is I specifically and intentionally gave you permission to speak to me about very different subjects, difficult subjects, when you felt the need to.
Okay. There's a couple of things to unpack from that. Of course, you don't get to these places straight away. It's a process, and it's a process that you and I came to over time.
Mhm.
I think that's an important one for people to understand.
Yep.
And then it's about forming a way in which you can communicate with each other on difficult topics and difficult things that I would need to raise. So if there was something that you asked me to keep you accountable for, and then I had to address it with you,
Mhm.
I would still have to think about a good time to address that.
Yep.
What state of mind are you in? Where are you at in that particular moment?
Yep.
So I know I need to raise it with you, but I need to pick my moment, and I need to pick how I'm going to address it with you. Like,
Yeah.
how am I going to talk about it? Thinking about tone, body language, all of those sorts of things. So, well, that's how I approach it.
Oh, well, it's doing it in a way that's not going to be triggering.
Or confrontational.
Which is triggering, essentially.
Yeah.
It's not going to make me feel attacked, because I've got enough negative voices in my head already. So that when the person that I love most in the world points out something that I'm not doing, it's recognizing that it's not an attack, which is what I was always very much ready for.
Yeah.
And waiting for.
And that comes down to when we've talked about in the past, and we can go into it, is creating that shorthand and a way in which you can communicate with the person without having to come up to them and say, so we need to talk and got all these things we need to go through, so that's not going to work.
The scariest words in the English language are "we need to talk," especially when you got a mental illness, because I'm already thinking you're going to divorce me. You're going to kick me out. I'm in trouble. So whenever a conversation starts with "we need to talk," I'm already checked out. The conversation is not going to be positive because I am already done.
I mean, you could potentially just look at it as a different way to actually say that statement. Instead of saying we need to talk,
Yeah.
you could say, I just want to chat about something real quick. Let's have a chit chat.
You will often ask me what kind of headspace I'm in. How are you doing? I'm struggling. Well, I got to talk to you about something. It's not the end of the world, and we'll talk about it soon. And sometimes they'll go, well, can you just headline it for me? Because I don't know if I can deal with it or not. And maybe if I get the headline, and by that I mean you need to talk to me about the way I chat with our oldest teenage daughter. You need to say, because I don't get it and she doesn't get it, communication's completely broken down. You need to say something like, Mark, you need to go apologize to her because this is how she took it. But it's done in such a way, it's like, what kind of headspace you're in? I'm struggling. All right, cool. And you know when it's not going to be a positive interaction. So you just don't even bring it up.
I think for people who aren't really good on picking up cues, I think just asking the question and making that okay to be able to ask the question, because I think for a lot of carers, not feeling like you can talk to the person because of what their reaction is going to be can be scary.
Oh. And this is where accountability comes in. So if you say to me in our coded language, I need to chat to you about something, you seem like you're in a good headspace, and I go, nah, you go, no, hang on. Remember we talked about this and you agreed. That's what I mean by accountability, is when there's a little bit of pushback, a little bit of, and it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while you will just say, no, this is not what you agreed to, or you'll remind me of the unspoken contract that we have between us.
I mean, another good way to actually present it is saying something along the lines of, I don't want to talk about it right now. And sometimes as a carer and just a person, I don't want to talk about stuff either. And I will come to you and I will say, so we need to talk about finance stuff or money things. I don't want to talk about it now.
Yeah.
I really don't. But if we could possibly talk about it tomorrow, and then that gives you time to think about that statement.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to cotton on, but you also do the thing of we don't talk about money at the end of the day.
No.
Because I'm just going to get all stressed and it's going to make it that much harder to go to sleep. And that's not a situation that I am in favor of, but we know that talking to me about heavy, deep things as Mare's going to bed is the worst possible time to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anything, not just money, anything that is very, very heavy topics, thought-provoking, just never at the end of the day. How are you going to get a good response at the end of the day? I don't even have a mental health issue and I'm going to struggle with that at the end of the day because you're more tired.
Yeah.
So you got to pick your moment. You got to really pick your moment.
Yeah. Okay, so number 2 is be honest. How honest do you think I am with you?
I think you're pretty honest. I do think that when you're struggling, you won't give me all the details. You might headline it, and sometimes you don't even headline at all, and I just know. But I don't think you'll give me the details about what's in your head. What are you thinking about? Because to you, you think I don't need to know what that is. because you know that it's not real thoughts anyway, so you don't want to
right.
make me feel bad by the bad thoughts in your head.
Yeah. No, that's good. But another big thing for us was having you in all my appointments.
Mm.
Giving you permission to speak to my psychs without me.
Yeah. It's a bittersweet thing, honestly. It really is, because then I know the things that you should be doing, and then I know if you're not doing them, based on those sessions.
Yeah.
That can be frustrating as well.
But again, that comes back to accountability.
Mm.
And the beauty of that is having you in the sessions, we've spoken about it before, is the fact that often I would miss stuff or misinterpret things. So you being able to say, tell me what you heard when they said this. And I'll go, "Buddha," and you'll go, nah, that's not even close to what they were saying. Or, yes, but you're looking at it through a narrow perspective. So when it comes to my mental health generally, when I'm not in the middle of a crisis, do you feel like you have open and honest communication with?
I do. I do feel, remembering that we're quite far down the track now. That's different situation, and everyone's going to be in a different circumstance. But I do for the most part. But there is a lot of what we've gone through in the past that I'm always have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always watching, probably like a stalker. I'm always watching and assessing and figuring out what I can say, and figuring out where you're at. But we do have a lot more pretty brutally honest conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said that these conversations are some of the most honest and brutal conversations. And these aren't even close to our most brutal conversations. I don't, I mean, when it comes to my mental illness, I don't feel like I hold anything back from you. There's no corners of my psyche, my wellness journey that you don't have complete access to.
I know I don't, but I do think that there's moments where you're struggling, where you just will go quiet and you won't tell me what the struggle is. And I actually think most of the time you don't know why you're struggling.
Yeah, that does
Um,
happen a lot.
it does happen a lot, and you'll be quiet for a significant period of time, and then I'll approach you and ask you why you're being.
Hours, days.
Sometimes it can go on for a couple of days. You're
Mhm.
still talking to me, but it's just different. I'm trying to think of how to describe it. You're not as engaged. You don't have any emotion on your face.
You said a couple of weeks ago that it feels like I'm answering because I have to, not because I want to.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, number 1, be accountable. 2, be honest. 3, take responsibility. Now, this is easy to confuse with be accountable. And I need to make the differentiation because it's very, very important to me in my head. So, accountability is a social contract. It's me giving my wife permission and the tools to speak to me about things that I'm supposed to be doing. So, even this week, Mark, have you taken your pills? So, oh, no, I haven't. Or, yes, I have. That is where I've chosen to be accountable. Where responsibility comes into that is if I haven't taken my pills for a couple of days and you're going, well, what's the problem? And I have to come out and just say, I haven't taken my pills for 3 or 4 days, not by choice, just I've forgotten. That's why I'm a bit low at the moment. The other thing is when I have a negative behavior, say I'm angry at the children for whatever, it's taking responsibility for what I've said and done. So knowing that at times what I've said and done is inappropriate, the way I've treated people is incorrect. It's not the way that people should be treated. And I have to be responsible to that. I have to take personal responsibility and I have to be willing to wear the consequence. With our kids, it's very much, I'm going to go and basically have to suck in my pride, suck in my sense of I'm an adult and they've just got to do it because I've told them to, and I've got to basically grovel and say, I am very, very sorry for what I did. And I say grovel because you can't just say, mate, what I said before was really bad and I apologize. In my mind, it's better if I outline what I said, why I said it, and why it was inappropriate or wrong or unfair. Maybe I don't need to unpack it that much each time, but so the question that I have for you is that am I a person that takes responsibility for my actions?
I think definitely more so now than when you were suffering more before,
Oh,
because I just don't think you could differentiate
no.
between the behaviors before. But now, yes. And often you know that you have said or done something that's really not going to sit well or go okay.
Mm.
And you'll go and have a talk to them. Only on a very rare occasion will it be me. Rare. I think you're more guarded and more careful to make sure that that doesn't ever happen. But I'm also not a person who really triggers you.
No, and somebody actually asked me a question at a school today about why the ways that because I speak about you every time I speak at school. I thank you. I tell people how awesome you are. I actually ask the question: who knows that women are stronger than men? And of course, the married teachers are the first ones to say yes. And about half the kids generally say yeah, particularly if they're all boys like they were today. But I had a point.
I'm not sure where you were going with the point, but I'm thinking that I was going to like it. I was going to like it.
It was around responsibility.
Well, let me just jump in anyway.
Yeah.
So I think as a carer, you also need to be responsible, and obviously you are because you take on quite a lot. But you need to be responsible for helping the other person to manage their mental health. I know that you're not a child, and that's why I often don't always remind you about your tablets because I'm expecting you to be an adult and take care of that.
Yep.
But it's also the responsibility of making sure that I'm checking in with you, making sure that you're okay. What can I do? What sort of support can I give? Is there anything more I need to do to help you to get past that moment?
See, it's funny you say that, and my anxiety builds up because you're not responsible for my mental health, but as my partner, I guess I do. I see it as a responsibility with you that I make sure that you've got certain things that you would never ask for. I feel
Hmm.
responsible if you mention something, then I feel like I've got a responsibility to make that happen for you.
Yeah, and I equally think it is a responsibility to some degree that you need to take on to be able to be a support because and helping you through different things because by helping you, I am helping myself and I'm helping our family.
Mm.
And that's how I see that.
Yeah.
Other people probably see it very, very differently, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, because I see it as so say with our daughter that's about to turn 18. I said something the other day which I want to talk to you about off air, but it was about the fact that she's about to turn 18. So the pressure on me to feel responsible for her is much lessened. So if she goes on to further education and she decides not to go to class and stuff, I will remind her because that's the thing to do. But at the bottom line is I'm not responsible for that action
No, the
anymore.
onus is then on her as an adult
Yeah.
to be responsible.
Yeah. So, yeah. Be accountable, be honest, take responsibility. And again, that is humbling and it's hard to do sometimes. To hear some of the things that my wife says, what Mary says, and to go, Yep, I did that. It was my bad. Not that you can say that about the terrible things that I've put you through, but you're just willing to say, this was my fault. And I acknowledge that.
Just knowing that it's a hard, we've said it before, but you can't just accept any and all behavior from the person who's suffering, and they can't use it as an excuse. So that's where that responsibility comes in as well, and helping them to get to a point where they can manage it better.
Okay.
But still, they're going to fly off the handle, particularly if that anger thing is a big part of it. But bad behaviors is never okay, even if the person suffers quite heavily from mental health issues. They must learn how to live and live with people.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things that I've often felt is not to my advantage is that all the kids can at times seem really super sensitive. So I'll say something that when I was a kid, if I had gone to my dad and said, "You talk to me like this," he'd go, "What are you talking about? You wouldn't have even thought about it." And I'm the same now. I'm sort of, my kids will say something and I'll just, whatever. But at times I've felt that our kids are really sensitive because you and I don't argue. We don't have knockdown, drag out fights. We don't disagree loudly.
It's a waste of energy. Waste of energy.
It is. It is. And I agree. And coming from a family where that's what we did, you have done the wrong thing. I have not done the wrong thing. In our house, that just doesn't happen. So, what is a big thing in our house can often be a small thing in somebody else's house. So, for my oldest daughter, it might be a look that I gave her, an expression, might be a word that I said. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as she came to tell me something and I wasn't as engaged as she wanted me to be because I didn't know that it was important to her. So in our house, there are at times things that, you know, I don't want my kids to be super sensitive, but I want them to be honest, and I want to um, have an environment for them where they can be a little bit sensitive, particularly my son, our son. I want him to be a little bit sensitive. I want him to be a guy that has empathy and compassion for the people around him. And we seem to be doing that pretty
It's a
well.
beautiful point.
So the fourth one, and again, this may seem weird. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love to hear what you, the listener, thinks of this one. It's try to do better.
I think there's a little bit in that for everyone, really.
But do you think that to me, that's been my major focus over the last 15 years when I haven't been in really bad headspaces, to constantly try to do better by you, the kids, and the people around me.
Yes, absolutely. Which is one of the main reasons why I think that we've still stayed together, is because of your resolve to want to be better. Um, you used to always say to me that you wanted to be the person who you were before.
Yep.
I don't think you feel that way anymore, but you used to say that all the time. You just want to be the way you were before. Um, I don't think that's reality with sufferers.
Or
I
with
think,
aging.
well,
Nobody's who they were 20 years ago.
that'd be like a whole nother conversation. But I just think you've always wanted to be better, do better, understand yourself better, understand your mental health better, so that you can live life with us and you can enjoy it.
Do you think it's a reasonable goal that I've imposed on myself, or do you think I'm being too hard on myself?
I'm sure you're being too hard on yourself on sometimes, yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, if that's what works for you, if that's your process, then I say go for it.
Well, I mean, I think you've said it very, very clearly that if I didn't strive to do better, it would have been that much more difficult to try and live with me.
Yes. Yes. And I think sometimes it can be easy to be I don't want to say swamped because that doesn't seem like enough, but to be overwhelmed by your mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because it attacks you as a person. Your mind is attacking you.
Mm.
And I just lost my train of thought. I have to let people know it's like the end of the day and we're both really tired.
Yeah, we normally do this in the morning, so
so we're starting on a point and it's going to be like gold. It's going to be awesome and then it's just like gone.
So whatever she didn't say, let's just assume it was awesome and go, wow.
Oh,
That's
Mary,
really
just
good.
Just got gold this afternoon.
Hey, look, we are going to pull the plug there. As I said, we are both mentally really exhausted. Thank you for tuning in today. Connect with us in the Instagrams, the YouTubes. We would love to hear from you. Join the conversation. Marriage and Mental Illness, we will be back with you next Wednesday, sometime on Wednesday when we remember to do it. As always, thank you, doll.
Thank you. And don't forget, if you don't want to listen to a podcast, you can always go on to Instagram and enjoy the 30-second moments, that little videos that I pop up.
Yeah.
It's a real way for you to practice mindfulness or just to look at a cool little 30-second video. Whatever works for you, do that.
And that's on Insta, STP, Shattered the Podcast. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week, yeah? All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Shattered the Podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.
Thanks, everyone. Subscribe, like, and share.